Great. Welcome, everybody, to another session at the fantastic Rewired conference. Our session is about celebrating and supporting refugees and migrants' contributions to society through entrepreneurship. I'm delighted to be joined on the panel by Ola and Therese, and virtually we have Fernando and Mohamed, and I'll give them all a chance to introduce themselves in a second. I'm Anita Tiessen. I am the Chief Executive of Youth Business International. We're a global network of expert organizations that support disadvantaged young people to start and grow businesses. And about half of our 50 members around the world are actively supporting what we call youth on the move, refugee or migrant young people into entrepreneurship. And we really wanted to understand better what's driving youth into entrepreneurship and what can we do to better support them. We did some research, which I'll talk about later, but really in this panel, we want to discuss both the opportunities as well as the challenges for refugee and migrant young people to become entrepreneurs. So before we dive in any further, I'd like the panelists to introduce themselves. So can I start with you, Ola?
Sure. Thank you very much, Anita. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Ola Enis. I'm a senior project officer at Stitching Spark, based in Gaziantep in Turkey. I've been working for Spark for more than 4 years, basically responsible for jobs and entrepreneurship initiatives activities.
Brilliant. And Therese?
Oh, thanks very much. Okay, I have to be careful about being so loud. All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Therese Curran. I'm the Regional Education Advisor for the Norwegian Refugee Council, based in Amman. I look after the Middle East and have the great pleasure of working with young people, many of whom are entrepreneurs, across Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, Palestine, Syria, and Libya. Thank you.
Great. Now, can I turn to Fernando to introduce yourself? Do we have our virtual panelists? I'm going to see whether we have Mohamed. I think we're just going to wait a second. I think there's some technical conversations happening. I wonder, while we're waiting for our virtual panelists to join us, whether we might turn to the video that we wanted to do at the start of this session. It's a video where we asked a number of young refugee and migrant entrepreneurs to basically give advice or talk to their younger selves about the journey that they've been on. So I'm going to turn again to the technical booth to see whether we either have our virtual panelists or whether we can roll the video.
We're here.
Okay. So can I ask Fernando, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello. Hello, everyone. Very nice to see you. Hello from Geneva. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback when I'm talking.
Okay, and do we have Mohamed?
Yes, hi, everyone.
Okay, Mohamed, you just want to introduce your name and your company?
My name is Mohamed. My company is called Multicaret.
Great. We'll be coming back to Fernando, Mohamed, and our on the stage panelists in a second. But as I was starting to say before, we'd like to start by, I guess, hearing from young refugee and migrant entrepreneurs themselves. Again, advice that they would give to their younger selves. So can we roll that video now? One moment.
Hi, I'm Ismail. I'm originally Syrian, currently in Spain.
My name is Mohamed Kawsara.
My name is Jessica. I'm living in the settlement in Uganda.
Hi, my name is Alan. The phone of Portable Voices, a podcasting and media production company located in Nairobi.
My business is actually a not-for-profit organization called Google. Google in Arabic means role model, and this is exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a community where migrants and refugees are role models for other migrants and refugees.
I'm Therese.
left Turkey around 9 years ago to establish my own business. It's called Bani. Bani is an e-commerce e-catalog SaaS platform. I have been supported by a government NGO a couple of years ago here in Istanbul.
My business name is Kawsara Production. Let's see. Now this is the result of my support.
This is a letter for my younger self that I wish I had been told before.
Dear Alan,
This is not really about the issues. It's about that you're going to feel absolutely compelled today.
I'm proud of how much you've been able to achieve so far.
You can certainly start again and again from scratch, and every time it will be even better than before.
I remember you starting back in 2016 with no knowledge indeed. 5 years later, you have supported other creatives to express themselves creatively and also educate different audiences.
You're going to be able finally to wake up in the morning and be excited. Be excited about that day, about what you're going to achieve, about the people that you're going to meet, about the people that you're going to help.
You will be very grateful for the support of your friends and family in your time, because there will be those who doubt you, and so you will need someone to believe in you.
Now, I like to expand my business to South Sudan, to Congo, to other countries to support my children.
If you follow your gut, you're going to find amazing, amazing friends that are going to support you, and an incredible community that has a lot to offer you just as much as you can offer them. So, keep it up. Love you.
Yours, Alan.
Thank you for supporting me.
Great. I find that in the work that we do across the network, it's always talking with and hearing from young entrepreneurs about their own experiences that actually helps us stay grounded in what they're doing, what they need, and helps us to really understand what they can achieve. So I found that video really uplifting, and we heard from Razan Ismail, who works with our YBI member Hatch in the UK, and she set up an organization to support migrant and refugee youth. Kid and Jessica, supported by our YBI member Coordinate in Uganda. She was originally from South Sudan, and as you heard at the end, she has the world as her ambition. And she established cassava production and has expanded into other areas of activity as well. Alan Nyongera, supported by YBI member Somo in Kenya, and originally from Rwanda, established Portable Voices, a creative agency. And Mohamed Kawsara, who joins us here today virtually, and he was supported by YBI member Habitat in Turkey. I mentioned earlier that YBI members around the world, about half of those members are actively supporting young refugee or migrant entrepreneurs, youth on the move in our shorthand. We really wanted to understand what was driving the growth in youth entrepreneurship and how could we as organizations helping them do our job better. So we conducted research, which is available online. It's Beating the Odds, Supporting Youth on the Move to Become Successful Entrepreneurs, where we looked at what's driving the increase in youth on the move to becoming entrepreneurs, what are the challenges they are facing, and what really can entrepreneurship support organizations do differently to support them better. Now, I'm not going to run through the findings of our report because actually we've got a panel of experts who will speak to all of the points that we want to cover. But the very first one that I want to talk about is why this matters at all. Why is it good to encourage migrant entrepreneurship, and really what is the case for it? And if we could get Fernando back on the screen, it would be great if he could speak to that in the first instance. Fernando?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
So hello everyone. Sorry, at the beginning of the presentation I couldn't introduce myself. I'm Fernando Martinez. I work for the International Labour Organization in refugee development context, developing and helping refugees to include into labor markets. Sorry, there's a lot of feedback, so every time I'm speaking, it's very hard to concentrate because I keep hearing myself.
Yes.
It's extreme. Yeah, it's very distracting. Sorry. So anyway, I'll give it my best. In terms of opportunities and and I've in many places, many. I think the discussion question around is it positive or negative or migration? I think regardless of that question, regardless of that answer, that's a fact. Exists, migration exists, and there are many instances where the pressure of that migration is very, very important in different countries, which requires an important response on the part of the economies that are receiving migrants. So that is a fact, right? So regardless of the negative and positive aspect that it could have. So then now, accepting that as a fact and being practical, you can do two things. No, you can either spend by I don't know, trying to mitigate the problem and or the economy consequences that are affected by the economy, and or you can see that investment of how can refugees help and how can the labor that is coming to the country have a different perspective that could help the economy. And I think that's the path, the smarter path, really. Invest is spent to.
Great, Fernando. I know you've been having feedback. You were also breaking up a little bit, but I know from earlier conversations, I think what you were saying is that migration is happening and you can either see it as a problem to be solved or actually an opportunity to be seized by integrating and supporting refugees and migrants into their economies. I know, Therese, that's a lot of what you're focusing on in the work that you do. So again, can you make the case for migrant entrepreneurship?
Sure. So in my situation, in our organisation, we mostly work with internally displaced people and also refugees in some parts of the world with migrants, not so much in the Middle East. But in the communities where we work, we find it really exciting to find opportunities for young people to engage in the communities that they have newly taken as their home. So entered into that community, and it gives them this great opportunity, particularly because we work with youth, to be seen as a positive opportunity, as a positive contribution. And very often they're bringing, exactly as Fernando said, new services, new ideas, new experiences into that community, and can often be a fabulous inspiration for the young people in that host community to sort of look at them and go, oh, I could do that too. Oh, why didn't we think about that? You know, and so sometimes they bring a new perspective to a solution that then the community really benefits from. So can also, when they meet young people in the economy, when they have that opportunity to see them out and about, it gives them more, they're more visible. And so it can be a really positive opportunity for young people to engage with each other, rather than in many locations where we work, where young people who are displaced tend to be stuck in a tent in the middle of the desert and don't get that opportunity to engage with host communities because they have no freedom of movement. So when there is an opportunity to engage, it can be quite magic for young people. They really can transform the space around them so that it's a very positive experience for all.
Brilliant. I'm going to direct my next question to Mohamed, so if we could get him up on the screen. One of the things we know across the Youth Business International Network is that a key to a young person's success as a business person is to be well supported in terms of their personal development, business skill development, connections into the wider market or finance system. So the question to Mohamed is, you are a young refugee entrepreneur. What was the support that you received that was most valuable, and what do you think is needed to really help young refugee and migrant entrepreneurship to be successful?
Hi. So, for sure, without support, I will never actually be able to go through the last 9 years of my life. Especially the fact would be for any migrant is facing a really hard life obstacles, and this is actually what I have been through. Like, I was obligated to go to a different path, stop my learnings and everything, and I had to work in order to support my family. And at the same time, me as I'm supporting them, they are thankfully supporting me back, and not only them actually, even the close friends who stood by me over the years. Especially in my case, when I opened my first company, and even after investment, it was unfortunately like a total failure. After that company bankruptcy, without the support of the same team, and after that, thankfully, actually, as the support, even the money support as the grant which provided by the Habitat Association, I would never actually be able to stand on my feet again. So it's really not easy to emphasize how much important it is to have the support in your life, regardless of the form of it, because you have to just you need some hope, regardless of the source of that hope.
Great. I know one of the things you were saying to me when we spoke earlier in the week, Mohamed, is that if you hadn't actually heard about Habitat, if they hadn't made sure that actually the message about their services was getting out to you, you might never have walked through their door. You might never have become an entrepreneur. Sure. So how important is it that organizations think differently about how they actually connect with young entrepreneurs?
It's a tremendous importance in the life of every host community when they are hosting a migrated society or another community, because let's face it, without that ad, I would be a normal guy who's attending 9-to-5 work routine kind of life, and this would be like, I'm so sorry, but I'm hearing my voice again, and it's really hard to speak. So in a nutshell, without that ad, I would be at least not able to continue my study and open my business at the same time. I would stay in that level where I'm only trying to survive. And that gave me another perspective where the host community is not that bad. I can do actually something really good in my life. I can establish my own business, and I can continue my dream about graduation. So when ad really changed my life.
That's fantastic. And you were talking about the host community there, and I'm going to turn to Ola initially and then to Therese for the next question, which is one of the things that really came out strongly from our research is the importance of building bridges, building connections between youth on the move who want to become entrepreneurs and the host communities, that it's not just economic integration, but it's social integration as well. Why does that matter so much, Ola, and how do you go about doing it?
Well, I would like to go back to the first question. Why is it so important to support entrepreneurs, especially migrant entrepreneurs? It's actually because when they are integrated into the local ecosystem, they become part of the system. So actually, they play two roles. So the first one is leveraging the local economy, and also the second is to act as a bridge to help other migrants entrepreneurs integrate into the host countries as well. And also for the second part,
is how do you make it happen?
We actually look for the needs in the market. So what these young people actually need is building their capacities. They need more soft skills training, more entrepreneurship training. And once they are ready somehow and understanding how the concept of being entrepreneurs, we provide them with grants to establish their business. Once they establish their business, it doesn't end, our Spark support doesn't end there, because we move on also to scale up their business and providing them with mentoring and coaching. So it's like end-to-end service that Spark provides.
Brilliant. And I think what we were talking about earlier is that actually when young entrepreneurs are creating businesses, they are selling to the host community, they're hiring from the host community, they are becoming part of the community that they have entered, yeah?
Exactly, yes.
Definitely. Yeah, brilliant. And in your experience, Therese, how does that kind of integration really work, and why does it matter so much?
It matters so much. So, I mean, one of the things that we find that works really well is that with our programs, we never focus just on entrepreneurship by itself, but we actually we look at further learning, because often a lot of young people on the move have also missed sometimes anything more than a decade full of learning, that they've just missed the opportunity to be present because of their situation. Also social engagement, so life skills, leadership, having committees, giving them the opportunity to design programs and develop what that pathway should look like, whether it's to an entrepreneurship, whether it's to employment, how they're going to connect with the market. And then we also have the training. But one of the things that we enjoy the most with young people, and they give us great feedback about, is some of the practical things that we often overlook. Things like taking young people to go and meet the shopkeeper who sells the consumables that they would use in their small business, so that they know how much does it cost and how do you get there and how do you find them. Or meeting the person who repairs the machine that they use in their workplace that they're creating. All of those different connections in a community, because it's a face, it's a name, it's a phone number that I can reach out on WhatsApp these days, as they do, reach out on WhatsApp and just ask a piece of advice. And sometimes if they're living a long way, they can actually just get a little video back saying, oh, have you tried this? Or here's a link on Google, try that. So creating those connections so that they're not so afraid to go and knock on the door of that business and say, I need help. And finally, similar to what you were saying, Ola, about coaching and mentoring, a lot of our young people are very young. They're between 15 and 24. So when they're starting that first business, it's really scary for them. So sometimes it's also about our coach and mentors, who are often young people themselves, who will go and knock on their door and say, come on, get out of bed. Let's go and get started. We can do this. Because I think that, they're, like Mohamed said, they're afraid of failing. They're afraid of getting it wrong. And if it's great, they've got someone who goes, where are you going to do your business? You don't know? Okay, let's get out there and let's figure it out. Let's go and talk to people. So having that person who accompanies them, because youth love doing things together. So if you can not be so alone, it makes a really big difference.
I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, Therese, and then I'm going to ask Mohamed if you can comment on it before we turn to Fernando and the importance of digital. Is one of the things that came out of our research was that the actual experience of moving from one country to another, either kind of forced migration or by choice, can actually bring out qualities that either help or hinder a young person being an entrepreneur. That they've, on the positive side, they've taken some risks, they've made some changes, they've had to show a lot of initiative to get from one country to another. And that shows the kind of the grit, the mindset that you need to be an entrepreneur. On the other hand, the experience can be very, very traumatic, and that can really affect a young person's self-confidence and the fear of failure. So I think one of the things we have found is, in addition to all the normal things you would do to support a young person to be a successful entrepreneur, there may be an element of psychosocial support that you want to build in. You're both nodding, so Therese maybe, and then and Ola, and then I'll come to Mohamed.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, when I worked in Myanmar a few years ago, we had a lot of young people in our program who were ex-child soldiers. And it was really amazing to see they brought this leadership quality to their entrepreneurship situation. And the young people in our program looked up to them because they'd been there, they'd lived their lives, they'd had difficult times, but they had this confidence that just when they walked in the room, young people were like, yeah, how do I get that? And so we worked together with young people to say, yeah, this is, it also broke down a few social barriers about perceptions people have about what a child soldier is and who they are and what they represent. And it was great to sort of change some of those perceptions. But from another perspective, when we talk about psychosocial, it's definitely something that's a big challenge. So many of the young people we work with in the Middle East, particularly young Syrians inside Syria, have lived through a lot. They've lived through a decade of conflict, and it is impacting them very seriously, both as a nation as well as communities. So through NRC, we have a better learning program which we integrate into all of our vocational training and entrepreneurship programs, because we look at well-being for young people holistically. It's not just economic or social, it's also about the psychosocial aspect as well. And it's something that, whilst the young people at first go, what are we doing this for? But by the end of the program, it's often the one thing that they say, it actually helped. It really made a difference to how I approach my day every day. Thanks.
Did you want to say something as well, Ola?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, Spark does not also support entrepreneurs and like businesses. It's also started in the Middle East by supporting them, their higher education program. So providing them with scholarships. Their scholarship includes services such as psychosocial support. So these young entrepreneurs that I'm talking about, they all have access to psychosocial support. And it turned out also, based on the research Spark conducted, that there's an impact on the psychological well-being of business owners and founders.
Great. Mohamed, are we able to get you back on the screen? Maybe you could talk a bit more about what it felt like, what kind of support you needed as a person to be able to set up your business, given the experience that you'd had coming from Syria.
So, like at the beginning, it would be really nice, as if you are like as a tourist in another country. It would be really nice to just visit and go around. But after that, let's face it, you have to be up and running with your own life. So you have to start a business, or you have to, as the majority, be a worker in some place. And this would lead you to a kind of restriction where you are just have to live your day-to-day basis. You have to just, I'm sorry, but I'm hearing that echo again. So you just have you have to face that struggle on your own, you know. So that phase will end up with the small obstacles. It will just lead you to a really psychosocial bad situation where you just would appreciate if you just stay at home. And even by myself, since I'm a developer, like I was actually like privileged to have really nice kind of job offers, but for the other people, it was even worse. But still, unfortunately, I entered that phase where I really just wanted to stay at home. I was like the biggest pervert in the whole universe. Like I just wanted to live my life in that isolation where I don't have to go outside. I don't have to face that host community, especially that, let's face it, the job or the labor market itself is not that nice in general. You know, it's like an environment where you have your duties and you have to face people even if you maybe don't like. And for example, even in my own situation, in some places I didn't even, for example, take my salary. So imagine that frustration where you don't have the money, you have nowhere to go, even not your friends and family. So you are going to your in yourself is going to collapse on you, you know. So unfortunately, I even passed that phase, and that's where I felt like my life is hard, and I'm really like literally walking against the wind. And thankfully, after like I gathered my issues, I tried actually to work on my issues, and I started thinking, how can I build myself? And that's where I looked to the whole situation in a different perspective. And that's where I really appreciated, for example, one cohesion boot camp which was made by Habitat, for example. It was like 50% of it Turkish people, 50% of it Syrians. And in that camp, I really realized that, damn, I didn't even know the community that I'm at right now. So it's really important for the NGOs even to do that kind of cohesion, helping boot camps or activities where you get to introduce the host community to the other community, to the migrated community in a different way. Believe me, like after 4 to 5 years, I had that really a new taste in my life. And that's where I took things differently. And that's where I established to go actually into the positive side. And I'm sorry if I talk too much, but that's where really my life changed. Like that's where I thought I can do better. I can really take advantage of the things that they are missing, and at the same time I have. Even we are like neighbor countries. Believe me, there are huge differences between us in a good way.
Great. I'm going to turn to Fernando with my next question, but before I do that, after we have this question, I'll see if there's any questions either from the audience here in the room or on the iPad, any virtual questions. But the question to you, Fernando, and notwithstanding some of the technical issues we're having today, there's clearly an important element of digital for business success more broadly, especially since COVID, but also, there are important digital trends, challenges, and opportunities specifically for youth on the move. And I know the ILO has looked into this recently. Could you say a little bit more about that to the rest of us? Are we able to get Fernando back up?
Sorry, muted.
Right. So
yeah, can you hear me? Sorry.
yeah, the importance of digital upskilling and
Yes.
yeah.
So I think, and this is I would like to bring to the table, to the conversation, I think an aspect that we haven't discussed in detail. Digital, I think it really helps in two fronts. One front, of course, is the delivery of certain services like training, etc. But then also, and very important to focus on is the active markets and market opportunities. And I think it's key because when we talk about migration, when we talk about a group of people coming to a different economy, that fact alone puts a lot of pressure, of course, in an economy. And if that economy is not growing, but it's staying capped, what happens is that the people that come start competing with people in that market for the available and finite market opportunities that are there. And this means jobs, but this also means selling potatoes or some product. Right? So what the ILO and what we're focusing a lot is, okay, so we have to focus on two aspects of the coin. One is we have to make sure that our target group, so refugees and host communities, can access the available and existing job opportunities in a particular place, right? So the better qualified they are, the better suited they are to make sure that the opportunities available, they're going to fulfill those necessities and requirements. But on the other side, it is crucial and very important that we develop new opportunities so that the market doesn't have too much pressure with the intake of labor that comes in the market. And digital plays a huge role in that, immense, especially in places in where refugees are not integrated into existing markets. For example, I am in Geneva right now, and if I want, I can just go down and sell lemonade, right? And I'm going to have access to a big market right there. There's going to be a bunch of people walking in my street, and I'm going to be able to sell the lemonade to them. But in some places, markets are not accessible physically for refugees and host communities, or they are very limited, the opportunities in that particular market. So those opportunities and those circumstances, accessing to the digital labor market becomes crucial. So for example, a small example here, and connecting that to the first question and with the things that we've been talking about, the furniture market, for example, in Turkey has been greatly benefited by the intake of Syrians who not only have a particular set of skills in terms of design, but also Arabic, and can connect these companies to different buyers and markets that these companies were not accessing before the Syrian intake of labor. So that's an example, right? And through the digital economy, the Syrian labor has been able to connect Turkish companies to different markets around the world.
Brilliant. A great example there, Fernando. We do have a question from the audience. I don't know whether we need a microphone to be coming around, or do you have a booming voice?
You can have a booming voice. Thank you very much. My name is Matthias Bosch from Global Dignity. I have a question. This is also a learning conference here. Mm-hmm. Is there a gold standard, so to speak, how maybe societies, nations can learn from each other? Where, with your experience, have you seen the best outcome when societies, chambers of commerce, other parts of the... Thank you very much. Can help maybe refugees to kind of get integrated, businesses started? Where's the best? We see a lot of migration in Middle America towards North. We see a lot of coming up out of the areas here towards Europe. And we see, and we look always to Norway and Denmark and other areas where a lot of refugees like to go. Where do you best where we can learn to make it better for all the refugees? Thank you.
Great. I'm not sure if anybody has the complete global overview to answer that question, but why don't I put that to the
Sounds
panel?
like someone online has got an answer.
No, I have an idea.
Okay, Fernando, the ILO.
Yes. Yes. No, so I think when focusing about case studies and good practices, I think one good rule of thumb is making sure that it makes business sense. So whenever a particular economy is integrated into labor market services, it has to make business sense for it to be easy to replicate in different places. I'll give you an example. We're working in many places in the refugees, for example, don't have access to financial services. And the premise is that financial institutions see refugees at high risk. So what we're doing working with financial institutions is help them assess correctly the risk, the profile of refugees, the lending, right? We come out in different pilots, different places around that actually is very similar. Means that financial institution has been missing out a portfolio and that they haven't been not just different information or different perceptions. We then showcase this as a business opportunity, not as a feel-good story of like, hey guys, it's so cool if we lend money for refugees. I would say, hey guys, there's a huge portfolio that you guys need to, that you guys are missing out.
Yeah.
So, and this information, this is how we did it in this place. So, yeah.
You ended strongly. You faded a little bit in the middle there, Fernando. But I think with the story, and I think you talked particularly about financial services, is that we're not talking about charity. We're talking about compelling business cases. Where, and I think tying with our earlier comments, probably where is it good not just for the refugee or the migrant, him or herself, but also for the wider community? Why is it an investable proposition? I would think that is a good segue into what I think is probably going to be our final question. Looking at the clock, is around legal, regulatory, access to finance issues. There's a whole set of problems or challenges that that youth on the move who are trying to set up businesses do face. And it's really one of the areas that in our research we identified as needing to be addressed, and that in particular policy tends to be either oriented towards youth or towards refugees or towards business communities, but not that kind of combination of all three. And I know that, Therese, you've been in particular looking at what are some of those legal and regulatory issues, how can we overcome them?
Thank you very much. One of the things that we found with working with young people in the Middle East is that often there were so many barriers that we didn't understand and that they didn't understand how to overcome. And so one of the things that we've been engaged in quite significantly with a lot of pro bono legal research to support us is trying to find out information about, for example, legal age. We have a lot of young people who are very vulnerable, and if we involve them in starting up businesses, are we actually putting them more at risk when they don't have the information about, am I allowed to work? What am I allowed to do? For example, in Lebanon, there are only certain very few places in which, or very few categories in which they're allowed to work. Or if they're a certain age, they're not allowed to work. And so trying to make sure that we provide that legal information to young people about what age, what can you do? If you start a business, this is the process. Is it informal? Is it formal? What if a policeman comes and starts to challenge you? What can you do about that? What are your rights? Who can you ask for advice? So if somebody does try to take you or take your things or try to stop your business. So it's been a really intriguing sort of experience for us to go through, talking to young people first, what are the things that happen to you? And second, then doing the research to find out legally, where do we stand, so that we can then third, go back to them and say, this is the information we have, this is what you need to know. And four, if you have a problem, come and see us. This is who can help you to try and defend what your rights are in that situation. So trying to make sure young people in our situation, but we also do it with adults as well, have the right information at the right time so that they can have their rights respected in a dignified way.
Well, I am going to turn to Mohamed in a second. But I know that there are issues around registering a business, being able to, get a loan, being able to travel from one place to another and all. Can you just tell us a bit, what are some of those really practical barriers that a refugee or a migrant would face in the Turkish context?
Well, one of the top challenges is actually funding sources. So a lot of refugees don't have actually access to financial supports or services. For example, it's so hard for some of them even to just open a bank account. And by this means like they are not allowed to access even bank services such as like loans, mortgages, and other things. So for this also, we have a project also to help refugees, especially those who are under temporary protections, to access financial means. And also we have identified another challenge, which is as you mentioned, the location and mobility. Because especially during COVID, the precaution measures taken by the government that didn't allow that much mobility for the business owners, especially for the ones who are following traditional businesses. And also we have more than these kind of challenges, which are the logistics and supply chain.
I've been given my 1 minute notice, and I do want to give the last word to Mohamed, so I'm just going to stop you there. Okay, Mohamed, could I come to you, which is, I know that you could speak for more than 1 minute about what all the challenges are. I'd really like to ask you more, what do you think the biggest change, biggest positive change could be in terms of either the laws or the regulations that would make life easier for you as a refugee entrepreneur?
Based on the situation we are at right now as a refugee in Turkey, in the past 9 years, I would really say it in one sentence would be give us a future where we are able to do something better than what we are doing right now. Because unfortunately, as what Ms. Ola just stated, if you are under a temporary protection, you cannot open a bank account, you cannot travel to another country, which means you are not even, for example, able to obtain a credit card and stuff. So I'm not going to talk much, but I'm going to give mic back to you, Mrs. Anita.
Thank you very much. I've had long conversations with Mohamed previously about all the challenges, and indeed that's why he's not with us today, which is he was not able to get his passport in time to be able to join us, which of course would have been a fantastic opportunity for us all to engage in that discussion. But his final word is to basically make sure the system is working to help create a future for youth on the move who want to be entrepreneurs, who want to create wealth for the communities, who want to really give back to their host communities. So I would like to thank everybody here for the discussion. I would like to thank Rewired for giving us the opportunity to look at education in the broadest sense of the word. And I hope we have fantastic conversations over the next 3 days. Thank you very much.
Thanks.